Hi, and welcome to IDS 468 Political News Group number 2, aka the best group. My name is Cooper.
I'm Joe.
I'm Tanner.
Gabriella.
And we're just going to go ahead and straight in and toss it over to Tanner, who has our first story today.
Our first story has to do with the Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which crashed over a year ago in the Indian Ocean. And a moist towelette packet supposedly from the flight has washed up on shore in Cervantes. A couple found it while they were walking on the beach and is now being tested to see if it belongs to MH370. More than likely, there's no way they're going to be able to discover that it is from that flight because it is such a generic package. They also discovered that the beacon tracker for the flight, the battery had been expired over a year before the flight had taken off, and now they're pushing to have government regulation of their airlines.
So, when you say it's from that, is it confirmed that it is from that airline?
No,
or is it just like a generic white packet?
That's exactly what it is.
And somebody comes up and goes, "This is totally it. I swear this is it," and they're just getting news coverage based on an assumption.
It looks exactly like just a white little package, just a little wrapper. It says Malaysia Airlines on it. There's nothing, at least from the photo I can see, that would specify it from that flight.
Right.
So, I mean, someone could have dropped it and it could have blown into the ocean and washed up on shore.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think?
I hope that it is from the flight. I mean, any type of evidence of us getting closer to locating where that plane is would be helpful. So I'm going to try to stay optimistic about it.
Yeah, that's a good.
I feel like from all this, they should have more regulations on the airlines, so catastrophes like this don't repeat themselves in the trend where airplanes go missing, they don't even know where to begin, and the whole thing, the only thing they have to lead them is the little white package, like you said. They have no clue where that belongs to that plane.
Right. So my question is, though, you said that they discovered that the beacon or whatever, the locator beacon battery was dead for over a year. How do they know that? And then on top of that, who's in charge of making sure that those are charged? Who? Not specifically asking the article, but in your opinion, isn't that some sort of disconnect between?
Right.
Somebody just goes, "Oh, by the way, it was totally not charged." So.
I mean, they're supposed to do. I don't know how it works in Malaysia, but I know and not necessarily TSA here, but they do pre-flight checkups on the planes to make sure everything's working. I'm sure you guys have been stuck in an airport before.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where they say, "Hey, we're having mechanical difficulties. There's low air pressure in the tire," and of course that takes hours.
Hours and hours.
They probably thought, hey, charging this battery, if they even did a check, charging this battery would take so much time, or getting a new one. So they might have just kind of passed it off and said, "Oh, nothing's gonna happen,"
Oh yeah.
Air travel's the safest travel you can have.
Yeah. Right. All right. Cut on that story. Back over to Joe. What do you have for us today?
Well, today we have Hillary Clinton reaching the news again. I mean, she's coming up in the news a lot before even running for presidency. And the latest from her is that she's finally turning in those emails that everybody wanted from Benghazi. The problem is she only handed over half of the information. So it leaves the question what she didn't hand over. And Hillary, she doesn't really have a great history with being honest. I mean, she's even lied about her name at one point in time, saying she was named after a Sir Edmund Hillary that reached the top of Mount Everest. But that guy didn't do that until 6 years after she was born. So it's how is that even possible?
Absolutely. So we can see some disconnect there. Yeah. So what kind of information? I mean, how do they know? First off, that she only gave half, and then of that half, do you think that was just her way of quelling the masses and saying, "Oh, here is all of it," but it actually isn't? How do we know that it's only half? Do you know? Or
yeah, she actually said, I've given you about 30,000 emails and deleted 32,000 emails.
Oh man.
So
How would you like to be the intern that has to go through all those?
It would just be awful. I honestly think that she's just trying to quell everybody, you know, calm everybody down. This isn't something she wants to be going through right now, especially if she's thinking about 2016. And that could be part of the reason she's getting angry at everybody, is they're just throwing stuff her way that she doesn't need to be worried about right now.
Unnecessary.
I mean, it could be a security concern since she was Secretary of State at one point. However, I can understand where she's coming from, being upset and not wanting to waste her time on something that could be pointless.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you?
It's true. I agree with him. Like, she's just maybe even feels like the media's just attacking her for any little thing. Like, she just feels like this isn't a big deal. Let's just let it go.
Right.
Or she doesn't have to.
Because if there's anything the political world has supported or shown, is especially that nobody forgets. I can't remember what movie. It's like people don't forget. What movie was that? Was that Superbad? You know what I'm talking about. Though,
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It ties back to like Howard Dean and his big. We watched that video in class with his big moment.
Mm-hmm.
Still, several years down the line when he came here to talk, people were like, "Oh, that's the dude that went nuts on television." Like,
everybody remembers. Yeah,
But-
people don't forget.
All right, we're on time for that story. Back to Tanner. What do you have for us?
Again, Ireland, through a judicial act, has legalized the use of Class A drugs, which include ecstasy, ketamine, and magic mushrooms, by appealing their part of the 1977 Misuse of Drugs Act. They were actually adding drugs onto this act without congressional or their parliamentary approval. So once that they realized that these drugs were being added to the Misuse Act without approval, it was considered unconstitutional because it didn't go through the formal process. So what was interesting was that the legislation was actually preparing for a negative outcome of this judicial review and had a bill on proposal to fix this, but it takes a full 24 hours for the bill to come into effect. So for this full day of March 11th, 2015, those Class A scheduled drugs are legal.
Ooh. You see, that would be a problem.
It does exclude drugs that were on there before this act was, or the act of 1977 was enacted, which include like cocaine and heroin and marijuana. So those three major drugs are still banned, but the more recreational,
Like the newer designer drugs were cut out of that. And why is that? Like for the day, is it because there was like a 24-hour period where the bills needed to be passed?
Right. Like it is passed. They just have to wait. It just has a full 24 hours before it can be enforced.
So
Right.
if I were to go to this place, I could take certain drugs that are not on the list. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Like Special K or Molly or something.
Right.
Which is the newer designer drugs.
Right.
What do you think, Gabrielle? What do you think?
I think. So you're saying that these drugs are legal?
For today.
For today.
So
yeah.
I mean,
Or
the
were
only
by the
thing-
time we watch this, but are in the moment we film this.
I think, wow. Like, that's crazy. I think that they're probably, the problem they're running with is that new drugs are coming out every day, so they're just kind of planning on keep adding and adding to this bill instead of just saying, hey, like any type of drug.
Right, they probably didn't go through this formal process because new forms of drugs are coming up every day. It is just easier to tack one onto the end of the bill than it is to formally
Actually,
Like,
go through Parliament
and make an actual.
pass a bill.
It's super interesting if you guys follow any. You know what potpourri is? It's used, sold at gas stations, and it's marketed to be similar to the effects of like marijuana or cocaine or anything like that. Well, they're finding that as they start to outlaw those based on their chemical formula, the people that make them only have to tweak it barely.
Because then it's
to
a
keep it
new
legal.
compound.
Yeah, to keep it legal, which keeps everything, just keeps the money flowing, which is what they want.
Mhm.
Anyway, we got to cut time on that story. Joe, your second story.
Oh, so Iran, it's always hitting the news, so I thought I'd take a look at what they're trying to do over there, or what they say they're trying to do, and that is to gain nuclear power. And that led me into a discovery that nuclear power is currently not as cost effective as solar power, and they should really be trying to build their solar energy plants up over there. And hopefully, they don't have any Chernobyl accidents over there. And their best case scenario doesn't even look good to me anymore. So I'm not sure why we're going to go ahead and let them get nuclear power when it's not beneficial to them.
Yeah, it seems like they're just using "we want energy" as kind of a cop-out, because I know that nuclear weapons for them has been an extreme concern over the last several years. I mean, what do you guys think? Think they're trying to like pull one over on us? Be like, oh, it's totally for power and not bombs.
If they are, they're not doing a very good job of it. I
Right.
think we know why they want it. And like you said, solar power would be a better option for them. They are in the sun,
They're in the desert.
I
That
mean,
makes sense.
and I know a lot of people are trying to push away from nuclear power for the fact that there could be a disaster such as Chernobyl, and I sure know that the Middle East doesn't need another problem.
Exactly, and it's interesting to think about. Chernobyl happened however many years ago. We don't know. We didn't do that research, but and it's still considered a lethally radiated zone.
Yeah,
You
it
still
is.
can't, and even if you do decide to go there, you can only be there for like 72 hours.
Really?
And then when you come out, you have to get like radiation therapy or de-radiated. I don't know what the real word is, but you have to get radiation treatment so that you're not contagious. Like, you spread, or you get cancer, or something terrible happens to you. So, but all right. And
But
then-
an interesting thing, though, is America seems to be pro-nuclear power. We actually worked out a nuclear power arrangement with India. And after working that out, we went and sold them about $5 billion worth of conventional military equipment. And so I'm wondering if we're going to get to that point of being friends with Iran, get them hooked on nuclear power and then sell them our used weapons and kind of make a profit off of their situation is what it's starting to look like.
It's and it's interesting.
That is
Mhm.
interesting.
Interesting to think about, especially that some of the countries that we armed back in the day, those weapons ended up being used against us in
That is
2001,
true.
2003. It's weird to see how we'll sell you the weapons and then that eventually comes back to haunt us. So I'm wondering if giving some of these countries nuclear power or giving them the capacity to make nuclear weapons might also come back to bite us.
Yeah, is it really worth it just to get some profit and then the consequences?
Do you know if
Straight
Iran
up.
has oil? I'm sure they have oil,
They have
but
a
do
lot
we
of
get?
oil.
Yeah, they have a lot of oil.
Okay, I didn't know if we get a large majority from them or if we still
If it's one of those,
if
we'll
it's-
give you this if you give a, yeah.
Exactly.
Like a trade
like, hey,
exchange.
if we get some oil. I know we get a lot of it from Saudi Arabia and other foreign countries, but I didn't know if Iran was one of those top countries or not because
Yeah, it is.
I mean that might be one reason we're hoping to facilitate that and becoming a semi-ally, an ally
Right.
in their eyes or our eyes at least.
So time to break on that story, and the last story comes from Tanner.
The last story is just an interesting one. From the winter of 2015 up in the northeast United States, it dumped a total of 105.7 inches of snow. Many icebergs are starting to show up on the shore of Cape Cod. These icebergs are larger than the size of humans by far. Also, there are waves of slush. It almost looks as if, like from still photos, it looks like the waves are frozen in place.
Yeah.
And I think you had another story to go with the freezing.
Yeah, well, in New York, the snow is finally melting also. They got quite a bit of snow up there. And now what people are finding under the snow is all the trash in the city. It's just collected. And then people are realizing how filthy actually the city is. And people are just having trouble walking around it, picking it up. They don't know what to do with it. So it's become a problem.
And
environmental problem.
situations such as that, you kind of think about global warming, if that's leading to these things, these irregular events, and you kind of think, we do need clean energy these days, and nuclear energy is actually surprisingly clean, but it's just not safe. Going back to Iran, so it just gives another reason to try to go solar these days and try to get clean energy.
Yeah, eco-friendly. It's the best way to go, I think.
So I think that just about kills the rest of our time here. Thank you for watching our newscast. We are the better team.
Have a good day.